when we go through change or when we want something for ourselves, many times we're focused on those constraints rather than looking at what are all the things I want for myself? What are the possibilities?
Ever feel like you're in a constant competition between your career and your husband's patience? Your kids think you work too hard, but hey, you're doing it all for them, right? The struggle is real, and I've been there too. Moments of feeling like a crappy mom and wife because once again, your kids had breakfast on their way to school, and you've got more important things on your plate than cooking and cleaning. Hey there, working moms who are juggling a million things and still wondering if you're doing it right. I'm Veronica Cisneros, and I'm a licensed marriage and family therapist, a mama of 3, and married for 24 years. Welcome to the Empowered and Unapologetic podcast, where we dive deep into the messy, chaotic, and sometimes hilarious world of mastering motherhood, marriage, and business. I get it. Balancing it all was never the goal, but here we are, trying anyway. I'm here to share my journey and guide you through yours. No more apologies for being driven, and definitely no compromises on your dreams. Together, we'll navigate the challenges of being a powerhouse in both business and family life. Join me as we tackle the uncomfortable conversations from being the breadwinner to changing the rules of what a marriage looks like. Let's figure out how to parent in a working parent household without the constant arguments or guilt. I'm Veronica Cisneros, and this is Empowered and Unapologetic, where we embrace the chaos, challenge the norms, and strive to live life on our own terms. Get ready for some real talk, actionable tips, and a few laughs along the way. Hello, welcome to the Empowered and Unapologetic podcast, where we dive into the real issues faced by high-achieving women. I'm your host, Veronica Cisneros. Today, I'm excited to introduce Kathy Sullivan, a seasoned executive coach and change agent who's dedicated her career to empowering women in the workplace. Kathy is the owner of Talent Principles, an executive coaching and organizational development consultancy. She is a board certified coach with a master's in organizational management and an executive coaching certificate and has an executive coaching certificate from Case Western Reserve University. Additionally, Kathy is a proxy certified change management practitioner. So please help me by welcoming Kathy. Hey, Kathy.
Hi, good to be with you today.
I am so excited to be with you too. So can you please share with us more about how did you become this high-level badass?
So, my background, for most of my career, I spent in industry working in a lot of different organizations. My background's in human resources and organizational development. So in that time, I spent many years developing people and helping organizations achieve their strategy. I went into consulting many years later and started really honing it more in on leadership development work. So helping people prepare for bigger roles within their organization, helping teams work together. And then I went out on my own. And in that time of consulting, I had the opportunity, I should say, to spend a little bit of time learning about some of the research out there as related to women and helping women advance, given some of the challenges that women experience in the workplace in particular, as well as at home. And I think it was all of those experiences that really led me to doing some of the work and certainly contributed to writing the book.
So you live in Cleveland, Ohio, single mom of 2 children, and wrote the book, Moms Eat First, 5 Principles to Prioritize Yourself and Create the Change You Crave.
Yes.
Okay, so how are you doing all of that, first off?
Day by day, I should say, to start with. And, I think part of, again, what got me to where I am was a lot of reflection. And this is really how I came up with the five principles, Veronica, because it took a lot of time to kind of think through how my experiences have led me to where I am today. And certainly part of what inspired me to write the book was not just about my own lived experiences, but about a lot of the women that I've met with along the way. So some of the work that I
Yeah.
do in helping organizations also gives me opportunities to help them retain women and develop women. And I've had a lot of conversations one on one and have coached women, a lot of primary caregivers, right, to understand
Yeah.
their experiences. So, to answer your question around like how I do it, I think most moms, most women, right, and just reality, we all kind of figure things out when you are
Mhm.
pressed, right? You're faced with adversity. Um, Sometimes you don't have a choice.
You're right. You're right. And usually, though, when people are in that situation, there's some of us that will figure it out. There's others that will stay stuck,
Absolutely.
right? And it's
Yeah.
not that one's better than the other. I mean, it's just, we're going through stuff, and
Yes.
a lot of a lot, for a lot of us, it might be hard to do all of these things, right? Many of our listeners are high achieving women struggling to balance career advancement with motherhood. What are some common barriers you have found that they face in the workplace, and how do you help them facilitate the change they want to see?
Yeah, thank you. That's a really important question, I think. And I think first it's important to maybe state that why I wrote the book, it was really about giving women agency. So I loved how you identified that many women get stuck. And, certainly as a
Yeah.
coach, that is one of the areas that we explore is where do you feel stuck? So
Hmm.
as it relates to barriers, there are many barriers, and I think it varies based on, each person's experience, but the ones I
Yeah.
refer to were near and dear to my own heart because they are kind of what I went through and what I hear a lot of women go through. Certainly, guilt is one. That's going to
Yes.
vary for everyone, but that's a big one, I think,
Yes.
particularly that moms go through. And, this really requires us to have a good understanding of what it is we're feeling guilty about.
Hmm.
What's contributing to it. I think exploring that is important. At the same time, that's where reframing how we're looking at things, and kind of keeping our eye on the bigger picture. Sometimes we get so stuck in the day to day and the little things that we feel guilty about. Maybe it's not spending enough time with our kids or our partners. And, you know, to me, part of, again, the idea of this book is we have to take care of ourselves in order to show up for others in the way that we really want to. And when we don't do that, we're also sending the message that we aren't important. And potentially that leads others to think that, well, now I need to serve others. And
Yep.
so the guilt is one. I also talk about and use the term momgry. So it's to me, the way I
I like that.
define this is, the responsibilities that I think many moms feel they have as a mom and some of the resentment that comes with that. But I think with that too, sometimes those responsibilities, I say in quotes, is because they're perceived responsibilities, and that another barrier, I think, sometimes based on your personality, is we take on too much. We want to do too much. We want to do it all just right. So when you look at all of those barriers kind of combined, right, it creates an opportunity for, doing things differently. So we really have to know ourselves.
I know you're doing a lot, and you're you're doing a lot, and I want to highlight the fact that you're doing a lot, and as a single mom. I know for me, when my husband and we were 1 month away from divorce, and my daughter, she was only a couple months old. I remember feeling as if I needed to overcompensate. I remember feeling as if I needed to do so much more because I felt as if like she was missing out. And
Yeah.
I'm not sure how you felt, but I know for me, I felt as if like well, this is my fault. It is my fault. I put you here, and I was stuck there for a little bit. Can you share with us if maybe that came up for you and how you challenged it?
Yes. So, one of the things what came to mind as you were sharing that was a little bit of what I talk about in the book, and my story is, I went through a divorce many years ago. My daughter was, I think, 2 or 3. Um,
Mm,
and I made the decision to leave California and move to Ohio. My mom was diagnosed with cancer. I was pregnant for a second time on my own. And I needed to be around family, and this was part of the trajectory and the work I've had to do is really get to what's
yep.
important to me and what do I need, not just to survive but thrive. And that was
Yes.
being with my family and having the support I needed, which was on various levels, not just physical support but emotional support. And I was able to transfer with my job. So, I think again, that's a good example of where we think we're focused
Hmm.
more on constraints than we are stepping back and thinking about what are the possibilities here, what's important to me, and what's a step I can take toward, that vision I have for myself. And that really, again, kind of ties in with the principles that I wrote about in the book.
Those constraints. I love that you said that. Those really hold us back. But I know
Yeah.
a lot of us. I know I did at one point. I didn't want to give it up. Like that right there provided me with some level of familiarity, some
Yeah.
level of. It was kind of like this illusion of control. And for me, it was like, if I let this go, then I feel so vulnerable.
Yes.
And this means I have to submit. This means I'm weak. And I really didn't know that submission and vulnerability would actually empower me. In your book, Moms Eat First, you discuss 5 principles to prioritize yourself. Can you outline these principles and explain how they can help working moms create the change they crave in their
Yeah.
lives?
So I will absolutely. So the 5 principles, I'll share them slowly, but they're really founded in what I refer to as the 5 R's. So the first principle is reflection is key to self-preservation. So this
Mm,
is really about understanding who you are and what's important to you and what you value. Because to me, that's really foundational to how we behave and how we show up. And I think
yep.
sometimes we forget what that is, and for some people we haven't even explored what those things are. But they're
Mm.
really what we come back to and what drives our behavior. And I think it's fair to say one of the things I talk about in the book too are some of the systems and structure that I think impact how we show up. And, ego certainly is involved in this, like how you
Oh,
were raised,
yes.
right?
Oh,
And what your
yes.
parents believed to be the right thing for you. Like I talk a little bit about untethering myself, to some of the beliefs and the expectations that my parents had of me, because,
Hmm.
we're all on our own journey and so much has changed in our society. So principle one is really about reflection. um, the second one is rediscovering possibilities is essential to feeding your soul.
Yes. I love that.
So,
Yes.
speaking of constraints, I find when we go through change or when we want something for ourselves, many times we're focused on those constraints rather than looking at what are all the things I want for myself? What are the
Yeah.
possibilities? So, it's really leveraging, that side of the brain that allows you to dream.
Yeah, and it keeps us stuck. And when there's not when we don't allow ourselves to dream, then we think that this is all that's available to
Yeah.
us. That's all
Yeah.
that this is all that's accessible to us.
And our mindset contributes to that, but I think
Oh
also
gosh,
there are
yes.
external influences, right? So whether that
Hmm.
be some friends that are kind of, nixing your ideas, or other people telling you you'll never be able to do that, you can't do that, that all contributes to a fixed mindset. So I think it's just really important to kind of step back and think about the things you'd always wanted for yourself, or things that you now want but for whatever reason feel like they're not achievable.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So those are the 2 steps. What are the other 3?
So the third principle is it's never too late to reset your priorities based on what is important to you.
Oh,
So,
amen.
right?
Never too late, ladies. Never too late.
So
Yes.
this is really about defining what is the change you want for yourself.
Hmm.
What are you aiming for? I'm all about setting goals and everything, but at the same time, I also find in the work that I do that our goals sometimes change. We have to be prepared to adapt. So it's really about, you know, what does that vision look like for yourself? And
Hmm.
getting clarity. It's really about clarity.
Uh, I love how the dreams and clarity tie in. That's like you literally get to play. You literally get
Mhm.
to create whatever you want. And you can also make it happen. Even if like this is something completely like it feels almost like a fairy tale, or it feels almost like something that's completely untouchable. I have found that when I've allowed myself to just immerse myself in dreaming and like just kind of being creative, like holy moly, the things that I come up with, and then the feeling I get once I'm slowly taking the steps towards achieving those goals, I can't even describe the
Yeah.
feeling. Can't even
It's
describe the
rewarding,
feeling.
right? I mean,
It's so
I can sense
rewarding,
the
so
energy.
fulfilling.
So when you allow yourself to dream like that, that is part of the motivation, right? It's and
Yep.
I think also a way of expression, if you will. So that I think it's a step, right? That is really important. Um, Principle 4 is amid adversity, you can reclaim power through choice. And
Yes.
this is really about, when you think about the changes you've tried to implement, or any of your listeners have tried to implement, sometimes when we experience obstacles, we lower our expectations of ourselves, sometimes of others, or we give up. And to
Mhm.
me, that principle is really about reminding yourself why you're doing what you're doing.
Yep.
And even if it's not turning out the way you had hoped, that you have to persevere, right? And it's
Yep.
coming back to reminding yourself why you're doing what you're doing.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And number 5?
The last one is peace prevails when you release what you can't control.
Ooh. Yes. Yes. Love it. Love it.
So, I think for some moms, and I am certainly on this list, just personality wise, as a mom and all the things that we do often, um, it's recognizing a couple of things. One is certainly, what are the things I need to let go of that I don't need to do myself?
Yep.
What are the priorities or the things that I'm saying yes to that I really don't want to do, but I'm doing out of what I feel is an obligation? But the other piece of this that I really talk about is, part of this too is about letting go of outcomes. That
Yep.
we also have to um, be open to just letting life unfold and being okay with the unknown, and also knowing that we might still achieve our end goal. It just might not happen the way that we had thought, that we had dreamed of, or
Yep.
in the time in which we want it to happen. So there's a lot packed into this one, but I do really think that when you can let go of those things, it brings a level of peace.
I know looking for the right therapist can be challenging. However, feeling overwhelmed and disconnected is even harder. Life is filled with several twists and turns, some more severe than others. We do our best to handle them as they come and find ourselves at a loss, not knowing what to do or who to turn to. The clinicians here at Outside the Norm Counseling are here to help. We are here to assist you through this time of need. Together, we will identify your strengths and goals and teach you healthy coping skills. Together, we will develop a plan to help you live the life you want to live. Our team is compassionate, genuine, and we take a great deal of pride in providing an empathetic, non-judgmental approach to all of our clients. It's time! You've waited long enough, whether it be for you, your child, or if you're in need of a couple session. We are highly trained clinicians ready to guide you. Schedule an appointment now by calling 951-395-3288. Again, that number is 951-395-3288. We're looking forward to meeting you and being a part of your journey.
brings up, for me, something so personal and powerful. I remember during licensure, it was my last test and had studied my butt off for it. The board decided that they were going to revamp the test. They were going to
Wow.
restructure it. And they weren't sure with the scoring system just yet. And so we were all kind of guinea pigs. Anybody taking this test, we were guinea pigs. But at the same time, we needed to take the test to gain our license. And so I remember the first time I took the test, I missed it by 1 point, Kathy.
Ugh.
1 point. 1 point. That a week later, they had redid the grading structure where I would have passed with 9 points extra.
Wow.
So they had changed it because I'm not sure why. I'm sure it was more, a lot of us failed by one, who knows, but they had changed it to give us 10 more extra points. And it's like, and I had to wait. I think I had to wait 4 months until I could
Oh,
retest.
wow.
So even though I missed it by one and they changed the rubric, or they changed the scoring,
Mm-hmm.
and so I would have actually passed by 9. Yeah, there was not a damn thing I could do about it. And one of my greatest lessons emphasizes step 5. Still celebrate, still acknowledge, and don't give up.
Mm-hmm.
I realized that was not my time. And I'm going to tell you right now, I had patients that were waiting for me to be licensed so I can open up my own practice.
Right.
And here I am. They had already waited for me for so long. And here I am telling them, guess what? You got to wait 4 more months or find somebody else,
Mm-hmm.
which was so humiliating. And when I did pass the second time, there was an office with fully furnished office. I would have never, ever walked into that office
Right.
had it been 4 months earlier. Like, there
Yeah.
were so many things, so many things. So for you, what would you say was your hardest and rewarding step?
There were many. Certainly going through my divorce, moving my daughter across the country, that
Yeah.
was very challenging. And, there was a period I've been very fortunate. I transferred with the organization I was working with, but then
Hmm.
when I had my son, I took time off. So there were many, experiences, but when you were kind of sharing yours about the testing, like, I think what I finally got to was a point that my response to these challenges wasn't working for me anymore.
No.
Right. So it's that overstressed, my reaction to things. What I've learned through a lot of this is just reminding myself the bigger picture, my goal, and that there's always going to be, a blip on the screen, if you will, and how I respond to that is what matters, because there are people watching me,
Yeah.
particularly my kids, right? And
Hmm.
certainly others. But there's this sense of peace. I think this is the biggest thing that I'm most proud of now, is where I am, in this sense of peace that I have about where I am.
Yes. Yes. How did you get there? How did you get to that sense of peace?
Really following these principles, and
Yep.
and a lot of it, and specifically to that principle, is recognizing, what do I have control over, and part of
Yeah.
that is my reaction to things, but also recognizing, in the spirit of my kids and what I'm trying to help develop them around to be successful citizens, in our society. um, it's really just focusing on the things I can control, and maybe things I can influence, but outside of that, letting go of other things.
Absolutely. Letting go. It's so, so powerful. It's hard. It is crazy hard. And it is so powerful. Accepting what is and letting go of trying to change reality.
Yeah,
Right?
that acceptance
Yep.
is a big word, right? And I think
Yep.
for anyone out there, that can be applied in a number of different ways. And maybe it's something personal, maybe it's something at work with the changes going on around you. And getting to acceptance and letting go, like you said, is really hard. But you have to identify first and foremost, usually it's our response to those situations. It's a stress
Yes.
that we're feeling. So we have to have that self awareness. We then have to figure out what is it that we are not accepting and do
Mm-hmm.
we have control over that? So part of
Yep.
it is a mindset. And then, there's probably some other actions and things that you can do to work through that might allow you to find an accountability partner or setting
Yep.
other goals to help you achieve the things that you want to achieve.
I think this is why it's so important to work with a professional, because if we work with, our friend, I've tried to work with my friends, in attempting to lose weight, like, and we both ended up with like a margarita and an enchilada. Like, it was not a good, it
Yeah.
was not good.
Yeah.
It was not, I mean, it was a good time. We had fun, but it was just like, what are we doing? And it's like, well, we'll start tomorrow. We'll start tomorrow. Could you share a success story from your practice where a client successfully prioritized her needs and achieved significant personal and professional growth?
Yeah, there's a couple that I talk about in the book. The one that I'll share was an executive and married, had kids, was taking on a lot of responsibility at work, and her mindset was around, if I don't touch it, it's not going to be done good enough. So I think
Mm,
part of that mindset, right, that belief, if you will, happens at home with your spouse, with the kids, making dinner, doing chores, whatever the case may be, and that's where we
yep,
tend to step in. And at work, the same thing. And it might be different, but it might also be the sense of I have to take on more so that I look and can get the exposure I want. So at
yep,
the same time, in both cases, we have to recognize again, how am I responding? Am I doing this intentionally and with purpose? How do I leverage the resources around me, right? And leverage my strengths and where I add the most
yep.
value. So again, it can apply in a lot of different ways, but I think that experience with that particular client, she had to reframe how she looked at things. She had to delegate more. And she also, we spent time getting alignment with her boss around, he was saying the same things and was very supportive of her and wanted to help her succeed. So I think that also
That's
requires us to
beautiful.
have hard conversations, right, with
With
colleagues at work.
boundaries.
Yes, very
Mm-hmm.
much so.
With boundaries. Yep,
And that
yep.
leads
I
to
love that.
accountability, right? When you can be clear around those things, setting those boundaries and making sure that others hold you accountable to them.
Absolutely. Our listeners often express feelings of guilt when prioritizing work or personal goals over family time. How do you advise them to manage these feelings and effectively integrate their career and family life?
Yeah, this is a big one. I'm going to share, I think for me, some of the things I've had to do, because I think guilt sometimes again leads us to do and say things certainly that we don't want and don't intend to. So if you're stressed, right, you might say things that you want to take back. So
Yep,
catching yourself, right? I think again the self-awareness around how I'm feeling, am I feeling guilty and what's causing me to feel this way? Reframing the situation. And if there's a different approach that you can take. So this might not be the best, but I, as a single parent, in running a business, I could spend all day doing my work if I wanted to, but I have to
hmm,
also provide, quality time with my son who's home. My daughter's away at college now. And one of the things that we'll do at night is sit down together. I'll get my laptop, he'll get his homework out, and at least we'll be sitting next to each other where I can support him. He's often interested in what I'm doing. So sometimes the guilt can be addressed in different ways. I don't think there's always one solution. It's not just a yes, I'm going to do this or no, but how can we maybe
yeah,
do this differently and achieve both of our
yep,
goals? Um, but again, it's looking at what is the bigger picture here and why am I feeling guilty? And um, is there really a conversation I need to have with that individual?
hmm, yeah, definitely. I think we stay so stuck in that loop and we create this dialogue. And in so many ways, I've seen a lot of women self-sabotage, right? And they'll, again, overcompensate. They'll compromise themselves over and over, trying to meet somebody else's needs. And in the reality, they're suffering silently and they
Yes.
stay there. And once they're able to challenge a good amount of that distorted thinking and really, really set the boundaries necessary, it's a complete change, a complete change, a complete change in the relationship, a complete change in their work environment. And they're no longer this stressed out mom
Right.
resenting their children, right?
Yeah.
Or resenting their spouse. They're able to enjoy their family, enjoy their time, and truly experience joy.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I think also with that, it's anticipating, because once you change your behavior, then those
Yeah.
around you are like, what are you doing? So I think it's also being prepared for, and that's about the reclaiming, is sticking
Yep.
to your guns, right? And being prepared for those challenges and those conversations so that you can achieve what you want.
Absolutely. What can organizations do to better support working moms, especially in high demand roles, to thrive both at home and in their work place? You mentioned one of your clients, how she had a supportive
Yeah.
boss.
I think it's a couple of things. This really gets to a lot of the systems at
Yep.
play, right? That get in the way of, I think, women's success, particularly caregivers, again, given the work I'm trying to achieve with this book. But
Mm-hmm.
I'll say a couple of things. One is looking at the systems. That could be the benefits, the policies, how decisions are made, right? So at a macro level, I think those are big things to look at. And I've done some of that in the consulting work I've done. But
Yeah.
I think what we miss sometimes is the simple things that leaders can do for their team members. So number one, it's knowing your people. It's knowing what's important to your people. Most employees, and certainly working women who are moms, want flexibility, but flexibility means different things to different people. There's a lot of assumptions we make. So I think flexibility is one that organizations can provide. I think post pandemic, a lot of that is happening now. Benefits, are really key. And that specifically is related to, I think, childcare,
Yeah.
providing resources and whatnot for families as it relates to childcare. And the other one is, again, a big thing is pay equity. There's biases across the board, but I think, it's ensuring that there's equity across systems within
Mm-hmm.
organizations. And all of that takes a lot of work. I don't want to make it sound, easy, but there is some
Yeah.
low hanging fruit that I think leaders can start with. And that is, again, knowing your people and what they need and starting with those conversations.
Absolutely. I know for me, one thing that I definitely learned about being a business owner is making sure that my team is well trained. I
Yeah.
made the mistake of, hiring and then just trusting that I don't need to tell them anything. They know exactly what to do. They know exactly what to do. And not realizing I set them up for failure,
Yeah.
and
It's
so making sure, right?
that was a really good observation you made, right? And that, to me, it's setting expectations, clear expectations,
Yes.
giving them the resources and the tools to be successful, right?
Absolutely. Absolutely. And helping them. One thing a lot of us high achieving women don't do is we do not celebrate our wins. I met with one of my clinicians yesterday, and, she started off as an associate. She wasn't licensed. She started off as an associate, and we're about to celebrate her 2-year anniversary here, with us. And, we were going through her client list, her patient list, and, she was sharing with me, this is one of my first clients. This is my first client when I started with the practice. And, she's starting to titrate down, the patient had gone through quite a bit of trauma. And and I asked her, what is it like to know that you have been a part of somebody's journey and helped them, you know, create the change that they needed? And she just stayed quiet and she's like, I never thought about that. I'm like, yeah, you were her guide. You were part of the process. I mean, obviously the work that was done is,
Right.
the patient's work, but it's just being able to acknowledge, for me, her ability to guide someone and take them through this very, very difficult journey and establishing that trust. And so we were, I was like, it's important. It's something that you definitely should celebrate. I want to make sure I acknowledge you and the
Yeah.
work that you've done. So I think that's another thing to add to, what you were saying, that, you know, us business owners or high level executives, like that is something so important to celebrate our team and
Absolutely.
to acknowledge them, right?
Well, and it contributes to our motivation, right? And keeps us going
Yes.
and helps us recognize the successes we've had that maybe we didn't realize. But what I really loved about that example that you shared is you recognizing and pointing it out to her, because absent that, right, she may not have seen that and may not have continued
Mm-mm.
going. So that is
Yeah.
leadership, right, at its best, is recognizing the potential and helping your people see that they are making progress. And that is,
Yep.
again, it comes back to what motivates people to keep going.
Yes. Yes. Especially if we want a strong team. If we
Yeah.
want a strong, strong team, we gotta have to be a part of that.
Yeah.
Looking forward, what trends do you see emerging that can impact the advancement of women in the workplace, particularly working moms?
I see a lot more focus, right? So certainly as it relates to there's so much stuff, noise right now around diversity, equity, and inclusion, and it's so critical around ensuring innovation and change within an organization, and ensuring that you're reflecting, what your customer base wants and needs. And I
Yes.
don't think that's so much new, but I think it's more. I think it's becoming more. Important for more organizations to recognize the need for different perspectives for inclusion. So inclusion
Mhm.
is ensuring that people are part of the decision making process, right? Not just about giving input, if you will, and then certainly is
Yep.
around implementation and being part of that change. But um, I my hope anyway, and what I see, and I know we've got the uh, our debates coming up, right, from a political standpoint. I think that will certainly impact the trajectory of a lot of this. But my hope is that there will be stronger alignment around some of these things, and more focused on the systems at play that I think are preventing specifically women and working moms from um, what I know so many of them are capable of. It's there's so many, I think, barriers that we don't have control over. But there are different ways in which we can influence those. So I
Mhm.
hope that answers your
Mhm.
question.
Last question. How do you maintain your own resilience and continue to grow personally and professionally? And how can our listeners apply these lessons to their own lives?
I would say one is understanding how you define self care. So I make sure, to build in time to do the things that are important to me first and foremost.
Mhm.
Um, so that's a big one. Knowing who you are and what's important, what keeps you grounded,
Yes.
um, and recognizing how you're getting in your own way.
Yep. 1,000%. A, like 100,000%.
Right. So that
Mhm.
again comes back to kind of what we have control over.
Yep. Kathy, for those that want to work with you and purchase your book, where can we find your book and where can we find you?
Yes, thank you. So my website is talentprinciples.com, which ends in PLES. So you can learn more about me and the work that I do. And then you can get the book online at either amazon.com or at barnesandnoble.com.
Congratulations on being an author. That's like a huge deal.
Thank you.
Huge, huge deal. I
Can I
hope you
mention
celebrated that.
Oh, yes. Can I mention one more thing that's really important?
Yes,
And
please.
it kind of comes back to
Yes.
the systems. There's an organization called Moms First, which is not associated with my book, but they are doing a lot of the work to make structural changes in workplaces and communities as it relates to helping moms thrive. And they're focused on affordable childcare, equity in pay, and paid family leave. So I'm donating a portion of proceeds from the book to that organization. So I wanted to make sure I
That
made
is
a point to share that too.
amazing.
Yeah.
That is amazing. That is beautiful of you, too.
Yeah.
That is so beautiful of you. Kathy, thank you for sharing your invaluable insights and experiences with us today. To our listeners, remember that prioritizing yourself isn't just beneficial, it's essential for creating the change you crave in every aspect of your life. Thank you again, Kathy.
Thanks for having me, Veronica.
Raise your hand if you are ready to level up your marriage for 2023. Do you find that you're spending your time together with your husband checked out and in front of the TV? I know you're ready for tangible strategies that actually get you results. Reignite the spark in your marriage, have fun, and grow together. Well, I hope you have your hand raised at this minute because I have something special for you. I'm introducing my brand new 6-question marriage predictor quiz that's gonna give you personalized results to catapult you into the next stage of your marriage journey. That means you'll receive the results to where your marriage can get the best help. If you've got just 1 minute, head to veronicacisneros.org/quiz. Again, that's veronicacisneros.org/quiz, and you could take my brand new quiz, Marriage Predictor. Get your results delivered right to your email address. Again, that's veronicacisneros.org/quiz, veronicacisneros.org/quiz. What's up, ladies? Just want to let you guys know that your ratings and reviews for this podcast are greatly appreciated. If you love this podcast, please go to iTunes right now, write a review, rate the episode, and subscribe. Don't forget to share it with your friends.